This recipe is for chocolate roulade, which is a whisked sponge, which means that the main raising agent in this, the only raising agent in this, is the air that you whisk into your cake. To avoid your cake going flat, you need to have everything ready before you start. So I have my cake tin and more than one sheet of greaseproof paper. I'm just going to move the sheets of paper that I don't need at the moment out of the way and just leave myself with one to start with. I've got 5 eggs, 50 grams of cocoa, 120 grams of caster sugar in one bowl. I have another bowl with nothing in it at the moment, and I've got a little bit of melted butter, and I'm going to use the butter to line my Swiss roll tin. Because there is no fat in the cake mixture, it's important that your tin is greased and lined correctly so that it does not stick. So to get this lined, I want to line the bottom and the sides. So I'm just going to scrunch the paper to start off with into the corners of the tin. And then I'm going to lift it up and cut down into the corners of the tin, and you do that on all 4 sides. This is a really soft cake mixture, and what you don't want to happen is that your greaseproof paper cooks into your cake and it ruins the shape and sides of your cake. Then I'm going to grease my tin, and you need to use melted butter or margarine for this. You can't really use oil because it won't actually make the paper stick to the tin. Then what you can do is put your paper into your tin, and where you've cut it in the corners, it should fit really neatly, and the paper should just fold around into the corners so that you don't have a large amount of paper in any of your corners. And again, to make sure that this does not stick to the cake, I'm just going to grease the paper as well. As I've said, there is no fat in this cake, and we need to be able to turn it out without any problems. So just greasing the paper or the parchment as well will help. And then I'm just going to put my tin to one side while I make the cake mixture. So the first thing that I need to do for my cake mixture is to separate my eggs. And there are lots of different ways to do this. The egg yolks need to go into the caster sugar, and the egg whites need to go into a separate bowl. So one of the ways that you can separate your eggs is to crack your egg onto a plate. Don't hold it really high, otherwise you run the risk of breaking the yolk as it goes into the plate. And then get an egg cup, and what you do is you tip the plate, you put the egg cup close to the egg yolk, you tip your plate up, and the egg white should come off into your bowl. If there's a little bit left around the egg white, around the egg yolk, you can just get rid of that. And in your egg cup, you should just have an egg yolk. If you don't have an egg cup, some people like to separate the eggs in the shells, and they will just tip the egg from one shell to another until most or all of the egg white is away from the egg yolk, and put the egg yolk into the bowl. And I'm putting my egg whites into this bowl one at a time, because if I break one of my egg yolks and it goes in with the egg white, I'm going to have to start again. I won't be able to whisk my egg whites if I've got any egg yolk in them. The last way that people will separate eggs, that you might find easier, is to just drop the egg into your hand and then allow the egg white to fall out between your fingers. So let the egg white just drop between your fingers and put the egg yolks into the bowl. Doesn't matter how you do it, as long as you get 5 eggs separated. If your egg yolks break in that bowl, it's no problem at all. But as I say, because you've got 5 eggs, and that's a lot of eggs to replace, if the last egg that you separate cracks, I would do it on a plate and add 1 egg white at a time to the bowl until all 5 eggs are separated. After you've separated all your eggs, you do need to wash your hands for health and safety reasons. If you think about where eggs come from, you've been touching the outside of the egg, you've got your hand covered in egg, wash your hands before you move on and do anything else. The next step is to whisk your egg yolks and caster sugar until they are thick enough to hold a trail. So use an electric mixer for this if you've got one, because it's much quicker. Slow to start with. So turn it on slow to start with until you get the eggs and sugar mixed, and that is not whisked enough. We need to whisk some air into this. So I'm going to keep going until this mixture is a lot paler in colour and I've whisked some air in and I've got a trail. So I've whisked my egg whites and hopefully you can see they're a lot paler in colour and they will hold a trail. And what that means is if I dip my whisk in there and let the mixture fall back on the bowl, you can still see where the mixture has landed, and it needs to be able to do that while you count slowly. 1, 2, 3, and it should not have disappeared by the time you get to 3. So my mixer, my beaters need cleaning before I do the egg whites, and into here I am just going to sieve my cocoa powder. So sieve all of your cocoa over the top, and it's important that you sieve it. Cocoa powder quite often has lumps in, but also you don't want to just dump all the cocoa powder on the top and have it knock out some of the flour, some of the air that you've whisked in. So get rid of all the lumps that are inside, and then you need to fold this mixture. So spoon over and just mix this together, and if you cut through the middle as well, what you want to end up with is hopefully a mixture that still has some egg white in it, but is all one, still has some air in it, but is all one colour. So fold gently, and you can see, excuse me, flicking it over the worktop, the cocoa, or I can see the cocoa is starting to mix through, but this mixture is still bigger than it was to start with, so it's still bigger than just 5 egg yolks and some sugar. And when it's done, it should look quite moussey, and as soon as you can't see any more dry cocoa in that mixture, you need to stop. I've quickly washed up my beater. It's the only thing that I've washed up because it had the egg yolks on it, and the egg yolk is where the fat is. I now need to whisk the egg whites, and remember, if you don't wash your beaters and you put the egg yolk in with your egg whites, you will not get this to whisk. And this needs to be whisked until it is stiff peaks. I've whisked my egg whites, and the way that you can tell when they're ready, if you just tip your bowl slightly, your egg whites should not move, and if you've got them to the right stiffness, you should be able to turn your bowl upside down and the eggs don't move at all. So what you need to do now is get your egg whites into this chocolate mixture. Because this chocolate mixture is quite thick and your egg whites are quite soft, you start off by putting in just about a tablespoon of the mixture. What you need to do is just soften this mixture a little bit so that it becomes easier to put the rest of your egg whites into it. And you can see it's already getting a bit softer as the egg whites work their way in. So I just need to get this to one consistency to start me off so that I can put the rest of the egg whites in there. It is a bit more mousse-like now, and I'm just going to use my spatula and make sure that I have all of that chocolate mixture from the egg yolks and cocoa is being mixed into here, and I'm not going to be left with a very thick bit of mixture on my spoon. So I'm going to add about half of my egg whites, half of what I've got left, and fold that in. And again, once that has started and I can see that it is starting to go into the mixture, doesn't have to be completely folded in, but I just want to start this off. And again, it makes the mixture softer and it becomes easier and easier to do this. And you can see I've still got egg white showing in there, but that's enough for me to now put the remaining egg white into here. So I want all the egg white from this bowl in there. I'm just going to loosen the mixture on my spoon again. And the biggest spoon you can find, a tablespoon, is ideal for this. Get everything off the spatula, and then I am going to just finish carefully folding and cutting this mixture until it's completely one colour. What you don't want to see when you're done is blobs of egg white without any of the chocolate in it, because when your cake is cooked, then apart from the fact that you'll have blobs of white in your cake, that is just going to be cooked, whisked egg white without any of the chocolate flavour. So it won't make your cake look good, and it's not showing your skill as a cook. So remember to cut through the middle of your mixture, and when you're done, what you should have is something like this that looks like a chocolate mousse, and you can see there's still plenty of air in that mixture. Now's the time to bring back your Swiss roll tin, your greased lined tin, and tip all of that cake mixture into your tin. And as you're tipping it out, you should not see plain egg white that has not been mixed in with anything else. Tip this into the four corners of your tin. That's the easiest way to get it all over the tin. Don't spread it with a knife, because if you do that, you tend to knock air out. And then if you just shake your tin to level it up again, when you've tipped it, what you don't want to happen is you put it in the oven as you've tipped it and you end up with a wedge-shaped cake. So this is going into the oven for about, I'm going to give it 12 minutes to start with on gas mark 6. When that's in the oven, you need to have your work surface prepared, ready for the cake to come out. So before you start on your washing up, you need to get your second bit of paper on a clean, dry worktop. My worktop is still clean and dry, and you need to sprinkle this with sugar. So make sure that you are ready for this to come out, because when this comes out of the oven, you need to work with it quickly or you won't be able to roll your cake. And you also need a sharp knife. So if I have a sharp knife, greaseproof paper sprinkled with sugar, and a smaller piece of greaseproof paper, then I'm ready for that to come out of the oven when it's cooked. And I can do the next stage. Having got that bit done, I can now go and do my washing up. So my Swiss roll has been in the oven for 22 minutes and I think it's done. So the way that you can judge if it's done, you can see it's pulled the paper away from the sides of the tin. As it's cooked, the cake has shrunk, and if I touch it gently on the top, it springs back. So you need to work quickly while they are hot. Tip it upside down onto your sugared paper, and then you need to carefully peel the greaseproof paper away from your cake. So just loosen it around the edges and then peel the paper off. There we go, and I have my paper off the cake. Now there are two ways of dealing with this when it's hot like this. You can, if you wish, cover it with a damp tea towel and leave it to cool and then roll it up, but I prefer to roll mine while they're hot, so I'm going to roll this one now and leave it to cool. So to be able to roll it, the edges of your cake are always slightly crispy. So I'm just going to cut the smallest possible amount off the edges of the cake to lose that crispy edge, because it can make your cake crack when you're rolling it up. And the same across both ends, tiny amount, not even ½ centimetre. And when you're doing this, you should be able to feel how spongy your cake is. To help it roll, I'm just going to mark about 1 centimetre from the edge, just to give me a starting point. If I just move those to this side, might make it easier for you to see. And then I'm going to put the greaseproof paper right on that edge that I've cut. This is a two-handed task. So you need to pick up the paper, in my case with my right hand because I'm right-handed, and I am going to pull my Swiss roll forwards with my right hand. With my left hand, I'm just going to help it to roll. And when I've rolled it all the way around, I'm going to leave the paper on it. But if you look in the end of your Swiss roll, you should be able to see that it is rolled. And I'm just going to leave that to cool itself down. And these bits of Swiss roll are not going to be used for your cake. So you can try them, because having no fat in it goes stale really quickly. And while this is cooling, I'm going to whip some cream for the filling. Chocolate Swiss roll, you can't put your cream in straight away because the heat of the cocoa stays in that mixture and it will just melt all your cream. So you've got to give it a chance to cool before you fill it. When your Swiss roll is cool, you can unroll it carefully. There we go. So unroll that and put your cream inside, and then re-roll. This cream is softly whipped. Didn't want it too thick so that it would tear the Swiss roll as I was trying to spread it. So I've softly whipped some cream. I'm just going to put it under the fold so it goes right into the middle of the Swiss roll when it's cooked. Not cooked, when it's rolled. I'd like to be able to see it right into the middle. I'm going nearly to the edges because as it rolls up it will squash the cream a little bit, but you need enough in here so that you can see the cream all over. So there we go, I think that will be enough cream. And then I'm just going to re-roll this. So I'm going to use the paper to help me to re-roll the Swiss roll. And when I get to the end, I'm going to stop with the edge of the Swiss roll there so that it helps to stop the Swiss roll or your roulade from undoing. Putting that last edge flat like that just stops the Swiss roll from undoing. It's stuck to the paper a little bit. However, you can see in the end we have a roll and not a fold. So this needs to go onto a dish to be served for your exam and presentation. If you had time, you could do some chocolate work to decorate this with. And although I've put this on here whole, it's quite nice sometimes if you take a slice of your Swiss roll. So I'm just going to take a slice off the end of this and put flat, and you can see inside there how much of a swirl there is with the cream. But you could put one slice onto a plate or onto a smaller mat for serving. I think I'm going to cut one more slice from the end of this. So I'm going to have a middle slice rather than an end slice to put onto a mat, onto a smaller plate like that. And then at this end you can decorate with icing sugar, a few raspberries. If it was a white plate you could use raspberry coulis. I like to have the Swiss roll flat. You could stand it up if you wanted to. It's up to you how you're going to make this look attractive for your final presentation. You look in black and white to me. Have I changed? Right, that's the completed presented, a single piece of roulade. All I've done at this end of the slate is I put a few pieces of chopped up paper on the slate and then sprinkled some icing sugar over the top, and I've added a few raspberries as well. You could, if you wished, put a fork on it or a dessert fork, but I actually think that one looks all right as it is. The cream in the middle of the roulade, you could turn this into chantilly cream by the addition of a little bit of sugar and some vanilla. If I were to make this for a special occasion, I might put fresh fruit through the cream as well, which would make your roulade a bit more luxurious. So there's your finished slice of the chocolate roulade.